So we've created a dirt material. What I'm going to do now is quickly duplicate this, and this one will be actual ML grass. And I'm going to double click on that. So we've created this. I'm next going to quickly set these textures over to the grass textures that I want to use. So the grass textures are t_grass. So do a search. t_grass 2. These are all coming up because they're in the grass folder. That was nice of it. t_grass 2d. And I'm going to do that for the normal as well. N. And because I'm lazy, no, let's do it this way. So grass 2, so that's the normal. And finally grass 2 diffuse. So we've now got diffuse and normal. Now for something like this, it's going to be easier for me to initially just disconnect the UVs so I can see the material up close as I'm working out the values for everything. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to blend in the same way that I had before. So as we pull away, it's going to be a different grass. But I'm going to have one other thing happening, which is I'm going to make sure that we've got a little bit of what's called fuzzy shading going on. And now fuzzy shading it's a function that kind of it's built to give a bit more of a realistic sheen to glass. To grass at certain angles. So we're going to do that after I've done the blend. I'm then just going to get the diffuse and kind of warp them and then set them back into the material attribute that we already had. This will make sense in just a moment. But essentially what I need to do first is make sure that my height map that's being based off of everything. So I'm going to go to here, start previewing. That looks like it could be alright, but I'm going to increase my multiply to be a value of 5 so that the grass is quite high. And my contrast at the moment is set to 1.5. If I set it to 1, it's that. 2, it's that. So, you know what? Actually, maybe 1.3 or so. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So we've now got our height set up. Our multiplier is set to 5. Our power is set to 1.3. And I'm just going to check the roughness value that's being output from here as well. So the roughness values that we have here are, I'm going to preview it before the lerp so I can see what the mask looks like. That does seem like a pretty good split between the grass and the dirt. However, once again, I'm going to increase this multiply value by 5. Make sure you do it on both of these. So we've now got that being set up as a value of 5, which kind of grabs the top of the grass a little nicer. I could even go a little bit higher, to be honest. Say 8. Oh, too high. Yeah, 7 is good as well. So if I get that, and I set this to values of 7, I'm now going to tell the grass that the top, I want you to be a value of 1, and then otherwise I want you to go all the way down to say this dirt area could be 0.4 will probably look alright. If I look at this in here, I'll be able to see it. I think that's okay. It'll be a lot clearer as we go onward. So at the moment I have 1 and 0.4. I'm just going to make sure I set that up on this lerp as well. Fantastic. So the last little thing that I need to do to get the grass correctly working is add the fuzzy shading that I mentioned before. So I'm going to right click and type fuzz, and you'll see that we have fuzzy shading grass. Now essentially what I'm going to do for the fuzzy shading for the grass is get the current diffuse color and then run a very simple, run this node on it, which itself is, if I open it up, a large network that's been built to kind of simulate a nice fuzzy area around grass. But all I need to do here is I need to, so we've got the blend material attributes going on right there. I need to get the current diffuse and I need to get the current normal and plug those straight into here. So all I need to do here is we've already got this node sitting here that's getting the material attributes. So I'm going to go to that and I'm going to add normal to that. So diffuse plugs into base color, normal plugs into that. And I'm going to right click on this so I can start to see the outcome. So this is going to be the color of the grass. You can see that around the edges the grass is now a bit lighter, which is quite nice. So by default, the values, I mean, they're pretty good, but I've got a couple in my head that I know work reasonably well, so I'm actually just going to throw them in. Essentially, this controls how much the edge has been desaturated, so how much color it loses. This then gets the color that's being added back into it. Core darkness means that when you're looking straight at the grass, does it get darker or not? And then you've got the overall edge brightness, which is a final value that gets added against them. Now, these can really go in different directions. I'm going to quickly just set some numbers in by holding down 1 and left clicking, left clicking, left clicking, left clicking. So I'm just holding down the number 1. And I'm just going to plug in some values that I know work reasonably well. Keep in mind you can always hover above to see what the default values are. In this case, I'm going to set this to be 0.6 edge desats. Oops. I'm going to set the edge color, on the other hand, to be 2.5 across the board. I'm then going to set the core darkness and finally the edge brightness, which by default is equal to 0.8. I'm going to set to 0.9. So that should look a little nicer. And finally, the last thing that I'm going to do here is we've done the blend, but what I actually want to do is get a set material attributes node that takes the existing material attributes node, and I'm just going to delete the current elements and just add one in that just says base color. So this will swap out the existing base color with the one that we've just created, and that'll blend in instead. And now if I preview this, you can now see that the grass has that little bit of a shine around the edges, which should look a bit more realistic. So I'm going to apply and save. And now it's time for us to look at the landscape and how to blend them. So if I go to my landscape material, you can see that we're currently running dirt straight into landscape. But let's do what we did before, and that is right click, landscape, and go down to landscape blend. Oh, before I forget, I'm going to go back to the very start here and reconnect these UVs for the grass. Easy thing to miss. Apply, save. So the layer blend is going to have two things right now. We have dirt and we have grass. Now the thing that we're going to change, you see where it says blend type weight blend? Switch that over to be height blend. Height blend. And you'll notice that we now have the layer grass, layer dirt, height dirt. So just plug everything in as it should be. So layer dirt plugs into material blended, height plugs into height, and this connects to here. I'm then going to add the grass node that we've created and just drag this into my landscape. So height is going to connect to height, layer to layer. And it's going to be black right now because we haven't given it a blend value. But if I were to set the dirt to be 1, you'll see that we now have fully painted dirt. But if I were to set the grass to 0.5, you can see it's starting to come in. If I then turn the grass blend all the way up to 1, it's going to be a little clearer. So I'll just show you that in just a second. It's hard to see on this node, but if I hit save and I go back to the landscape, I'm now going to have to quickly reset my landscape up, but that's okay. I just go to landscape, I go to paint. Now at the moment it's kind of just working out what's going on because I just dropped the material that we had on before. A nice way to kind of get it to quickly detect it if it hasn't already is to set it to a different thing and then plug it back in again, and you'll see that the target layers are now appearing. Now by default, I actually want to cover this entire environment in dirt. So I'm going to add, and this time it's going to be a non-weight blended layer, which will go into my landscape assets folder. Again, non-weight blended layer, landscape assets. I'm now going to right click on the dirt and I'm going to say fill layer. And this will cover my entire landscape in dirt. Just give it a second. And there it is there. Now at the moment I'm clearly missing something because as I move away we're getting this value. So I'll quickly check what's going on there. So at the moment my distance blend is correctly set up on my grass. And on my dirt, you can see it definitely taking place there. So the reason this is currently not working is a rather simple mistake. If I go back to my landscape, before when demonstrating something, I accidentally plugged distant UVs instead of distant blend into that section in my landscape. So you can select the distant UVs on this one and just delete them. Hit apply and save. And then I'm just going to go back into my world and wait for it to quickly recalculate everything. And that's all correctly working again. Okay, so we've got that going. This time though, I'm going to select grass and I'm going to start painting in the grass. And one thing that's going to be quite important here is when I paint in the grass, I want to make sure I have a reasonably high, reasonably high fall off. So I only want to really paint the inner section as full grass. Now the reason for that is that if I get this and I just paint it in, give it a second to build it for the first time. So I've painted this in. It's now blending between grass and dirt. But if I get my dirt and I want to, I can actually then paint my dirt out so that in the center I have full grass, but around the edges the grass kind of calmly, cleanly, nicely blends into the cracks of the dirt and through the rest, which I think works quite nicely. So that's how we are going to go about creating this, and we can add as many layers as we want, and I really encourage you to do this for your landscape. It's up to you what you want to create and how you want to do it, but I would strongly recommend, if you're doing this, to consider creating a couple of extra material layers that are going to make up rock, cliff, that kind of stuff. The next thing that we're going to focus on doing though, now that we've kind of got the basics going and we can start really painting in all of this stuff, is now setting up an environment within this that works reasonably well. So I'm not going to go into the cliffside stuff or rocks or anything just yet. I'm going to focus on getting some meshes in and getting an environment up and running that works nicely.